I'm like, what is going on? The wheel is looking a little choppy. I feel like tech is slow today. Maybe not. Well, just here recently, honestly. It seemed like it was moving at a decent enough pace earlier. So today is going to be the second day, not in a row. I do remember saying most days this week, or some days, not every day consecutively. I don't know. Today I'm just like tired. You know, I feel like I'm about to get burned out real quick, which is fine because there's going to be a long weekend here in 2 weeks? Question mark. I mean, it's not fine, but you know. So today I was like, I was at work and I was just like, is this the bad place? Am I in the bad place? Did I do something? Oh. Starting to get the Saturn part of my Saturn return. But it's fine because, you know, I got a little bit of Jupiter later, so it all balances out. Well, and by a little bit, I mean a little bit because it's fine. It's not about me, but it is. But it is fun. So, any thoughts today? Actually, I wore my I have a crawler earring. And I wore it yesterday. I've worn it before. Um, because I wanted to wear it yesterday, and then I was like, "Oh, it's the Star Climber." I'm gonna put it on, and then we're gonna get into this. We're gonna see what's up. I feel like there was something that I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember what it was. If it was, excuse me. I know I've done a pick a card before, and it was like pick a thing, and these earrings. See, it's like stars. I was like, oh, it's like the Star Climber. Okay. But anyway, let me take another sip of ginger. If I had to listen, feels like an open door. I don't know if it's an opening door, if the door is ajar. It feels like an opening door, golden light spilling out, which would carry through the theme of the Aksunade light work. Well, I guess that's interesting because I was just telling my friend about how I'll dream in Japanese and Chinese sometimes because I've taken the classes, so I have the information in my subconscious, and that wasn't even a dream. It sort of like came to me bit by bit, and it was kusunade. And when I looked it up, maybe I was dreaming because when I looked it up on Google Translate, I was like, "What does kusunade mean?" And then aksunade popped up, and it said dawn. Now when I type it in, it don't pop up. Hey, Ollie, how you doing? They have dark chocolate on the other side of the door. I'm warming up to dark chocolate now that my sweet tooth has learned subtlety in that brief period of time where I wasn't eating like any sugar. I was like, whoa, are carrots sweet? Hello? Is dark chocolate actually like kind of good? So, what is the Archeo today? Oh, I'm gonna do 4. No, I'll do 3. Since we're on the theme of doors. And Bixby is gonna choose what door. Choose a number between one. Oh, come on. Hi, Bixby. Choose a number between 1 and 3.
Running some quick calculations. Drum roll, please. Your number is 2.
Nice and moderate, right in the middle. Okay. So door number 2 is the door we're going with today. Oh. The attribute is the survivor today. The persona is the strategist with the green man right behind it. What is this? I feel like this is not a door of golden opportunity. We'll see what this is about. We also have the poet as one, and then the wolf again as another. I know the strategist and the survivor came out around, I think the survivor came out around the hypocrite. It was the warrior and the survivor. And then at the end, the strategist came out. Um, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Well, withhold judgment. They both start with an S, so. The survivor, the attribute. The strategist. That is not the right entry. There we go. The survivor has been called many names: ragamuffin, urchin, gutter snipe, tanter. What? Tatterdemalion? But at his core, he's a proudly independent forager. Some might try to label him amoral, but when the center fails to hold and things fall apart, leaving the landscape a wreck of hardship, then the survivor's ethics become apparent. He functions in the gaps left by inequality and has no fear of draconian authority. Always the shrewd pragmatist, he makes certain that he and his companions never starve. Okay. The strategist is a careful tactician. Through the clouds of smoke and the refractions of light, he sees the pieces shifting many moves ahead, the whole game of chess flexing and shaping itself into the likely and the unlikely. His brain is clear, and he uses his razor sharp logic to calculate the possible outcomes of any given path. He is comfortable amongst the abstraction and never blindsided by complacency. No narrow minded academic trying to make events fit a predefined formula. He sees possibilities and options that you and I might overlook. The strategist's vision is wide, and he incorporates into his calculations his own behavior patterns as well as that of any opponent. A master of the checkerboard of night and day, where destiny with men for pieces plays, hither and thither he moves and mates and slays, and one by one back into the closet lays. Oh. So maybe this is that door. And I was going to say it's interesting because every time the energy of a golden door sort of like popped up before, it was in reference to the shortcut. And it was like we're going somewhere, we're doing something, and then this doorway just sort of like magically apparates. Is that the word? It appears out of thin air. And someone's like, hey, like, come this way. It's like you can skip the line if you go through the door. And so the survivor is the one who exists in between, who is never seen wanting, apparently. The strategist is the one who can see the chessboard or who can see. It's almost like, well, who can see into potentiality as things shift in the now, in reality. And he does so by taking into account his behaviors and the behaviors of others. So there is quite a bit of overlap between the survivor and the strategist. But it feels like it's like up until this point, at least, or maybe it's connotations of the cards. It's like barely gotten by, or it's just like just barely made it. But it feels like there's a resourcefulness here. Like maybe there's a resource that is going unutilized because people don't know what it is. But the strategist and the survivor like knows that it can be used for something. It can be used for something to provide much comfort. Um, and it uses it, it goes for it. It feels like it changes the game in some way, or it plays a different game. And that's why the survivor is so like outside. I don't even know what deck I would use to clarify this. I'm trying to think if something's come out recently. I feel like it has. Because the energy with this, it feels like it's about learning how to use your energy and your attention. And I think that kind of came out when I was like, you don't have to. I think that was the jester and the trickster. When it was like, if 4 out of 5 things are true or 4 out of 7 things are true, you can take the 4 things that are true as true and then substitute the untruths for something else or something like that. And it was like at the end of the video, I was like, this whole video was basically, that was the one when I was like, I keep getting like, inform people, blah, 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 whatever. I'm like, what do I got to inform people about? What's a good deck for this? I could use a Revelation SKT, but I need more help. I don't know. I'm tired. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I pick. I'll do the same. So 1 and 6 I choose. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi Bixby, roll a die. Roll the dice.
Okay, here we go. Let's see what comes up. All right, you got a 2.
A 2. So we're in the first drawer. Oh, well, let's go for the SKT Revelations then. Because it is right here. Is this Revelations or Vitruvian? I'll grab Vitruvian. Am I keeping it? Tails and I'll keep it. Hi Bixby, flip a coin. Flip a coin.
All right, here comes the flip. Looks like it came up heads.
Heads. No, we're going for the Vitruvian. Okay. Should have just trusted my first mind. Why Vitruvian SKT? Or the Revelation, sorry. Why the Revelation SKT? Revelation has, for me, and I don't know if it's because I use the Vitruvian, but there feels like there's a rebirthy energy of the Revelation edition. Like it feels reimagined or new or next. And I know when she made this version, she wanted to get a little closer to the traditional tarot and depicting more like people, people and characters. But let's see. What is the strategist's game? I want to know the strategist's game. First card. Should I pick them? Yeah, I'll pick them. This is the strategist's game. Ooh, it's the healer. What does the strategist see? 3 cards. The Chancellor, the Joined One, and the Grotesque is what the strategist sees. And how is it shifting? The politic. And then the survivor is the tension, Two of Pentacles. Bottom of the deck is the Shining Waters, Knight of Cups energy. So with the tension, Two of Pentacles coming out for survivor, like it makes sense. It's the one who is like caught in between worlds. Or because it mentioned like his amorality, right? Or his perceived amorality. But it's like the survivor does what it has to do to survive. Right. And when it comes to like self-preservation, what is moral becomes a little bit more, it's almost like things become a lot more relative in this space. It's like stealing is wrong. But if you are literally on the verge of starving to death and somebody has more food than they can ever eat and they're just going to throw it away anyway, then is it wrong to steal to feed yourself in the sense of self-preservation? And in that sense, it could be argued yes, it could be argued no. The survivor is going to do what the survivor needs to do to survive. So the argument doesn't matter. And in that way, things almost feel fixed. Like it feels like there is a balance that is not being observed right now. Or it's like things aren't being counted. Who we got over here? This is something over something. Did I get this I Ching? No. It was solid open. Did I? Let me see. I think I'm gonna read that I Ching. Or that hexagram. I mean, I gotta find the hexagram before I can read the hexagram. So I'm gonna find the hexagram first. Why am I like trying to read this right to left? So this is, I think that's Mount. No, that's not mountain. Is that wind? Oh, that is mountain. Mountain over lake. Mountain over lake. Did I get that one? Lake under the mountain. Lake under the mountain, number 41, debilitation. I'm not going to find it. Where are the books? Here are the books. Hey, we already in here. 41. The healer and the two of orbs. Okay. A state of debilitation, that which is below must yield and decrease to compensate for that which is above. A sacrifice made sincerely from the heart must be offered as compensation. Although movement is in the decline, it is still advantageous for you to proceed forward on your endeavor. There are still benefits to be had in continuing. The question to ask is how one might achieve advancement in spite of the ongoing state of debilitation. You remain protected by the divine. Do not linger or dwell on a matter that has come to a conclusion. Do not fault yourself for the outcome. So, very survivor type of energy. Like, how might one achieve advancement in spite of an ongoing state of debilitation? The survivor is the one, like, because that's been the survivor's life. Because they've had to do that, they almost have. I mean, they would have an advantage over someone who's never had to do that. You know what I mean? For one who's used to being debilitated, it's almost like I almost wonder. I was gonna say it's almost like nothing's changed for them now that the debilitation has spread, but I wonder if that's true because again, it's like they would be at a point of advantage because they know how to navigate those waters, and now you got a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily know. So before they were debilitated and at a disadvantage. Now they're debilitated at an advantage, and they can use that advantage to create movement to escape the debilitation. I feel like I got a headache starting to form, like right here. I can feel it. The healer being the game that the strategist is playing is reassuring, I guess, because it feels like it's like a good outcome. It's an outcome that leads to betterment. Probably for like more than just the self. And the survivor did say the entry was like the survivor and those close to the survivor. Let me find it. I got poems in the back. I forgot about the poems. Always the shrewd pragmatist, he makes certain that he and his companions never starve. So there is an energy of like the survivor also, like there are multiple people involved. Heads is gonna be the survivor, tails is gonna be the strategist. Hi Bixby. Flip a coin.
All right, here comes the flip. Tails it is.
So the strategist's tail is what we're gonna read. I forgot these were back here. Marcel's long fingers delicately gripped the white knight. He lifted the piece vertically and lowered it. Hold up. Hold it. Did somebody say a white knight? Okay. All right. Confirmation. The horse is white. Okay. Marcel's long fingers delicately gripped the white knight. He lifted the piece vertically and lowered it, crane like, onto the square between Reen's rooks. Reen or Renee. Is that Renee? I guess it could be Renee. There's only one E. We'll call it Renee. Or him. Them. We'll call them Renee. Renee could tell that Marcel, now a thin chartreuse praying mantis, was setting a trap. This was far from the first time the renowned surrealist had locked horns. They had been trying to outthink each other for years, each honing complicated strategies of move and counter. To the outsider, these games may have seemed absurd, but to Deschamps and Marguerite, there was no better way to prepare for the unexpected than to push the edges of reality. Now I'm like, wait. So the strategist sees, oh, this is a Mars and Venus trine. Mars in Scorpio, Venus in Cancer, and then Libra. It feels like the strategist sees whatever this grotesque energy is. With the Five of Cups, the grotesque is the outsider. You could say, we could say it's the survivor, or it has to be because of the position that life puts it in. But it's like, what is outside, what is made outcast or a pariah? It's like with this Two of Cups, it's being welcomed into the fold. But with this Chancellor energy, with the energy of justice here, it's being welcomed into something that matches its energy. So this isn't just like the person who was an outcast is now going to be able to get into those circles that they wanted to be in all their lives, but they were like constantly rejected from. It feels like it's not that, because that's not a match to that survivor's energy. It feels like this like survivor is golden, and that's why the door is opening and the golden light is spilling out, right? It's not about getting the thing that you missed out on. It's about getting the thing that you deserve. And then the strategist sees it happening as the politic. Now, the politic in the SKT is basically three wise men coming together for a prophecy. And there's the staff of the past, the present, and the future. So what's interesting is it almost feels like something about this time was foretold in a way, sure. It feels like getting something early. Like it feels like given enough time, everything is going to eventually shift into this direction. Given enough time and choices being made by people, it's a path that people more collectively could choose to make this more of a reality for like more people. But it seems like, feels like the survivor is in a way getting early access because we get what we deserve. Mm, it's partially that, it's partially just like an awareness thing, right? Like before the debilitation, there were people who were already on the journey, on the path, or whatever. So there's a point that they reach in their time that everyone will reach in their own time. But time scales are like relative, right? And so it happens differently or at a different fixed time for everybody. But it feels like there's something a little bit more than this just happening. Because I think if it were just happening by itself, there would be no need for the strategist to be here. You know what I mean? The strategist is the attribute, or the strategist is the persona of the survivor. Maybe too, it's this energy because it feels like the survivor is like getting like leftovers but it feels like it's in the realm of like belief. And so it's almost like the survivor would be one who is potentially, there are many paths to this, but it's like the one who was exposed to many religious and spiritual belief systems and who's able to reconcile the differences between several to get a greater picture of the capital T truth because it assembles different pieces from different places. It puts fragments together. It's like assembling a jigsaw puzzle, which is funny because I was at work today and I was looking at these different games because Microsoft Solitaire was acting up. The Solitaire collection, it kept pausing in the middle of the ad, and I'm like, I'm on the screen, I'm clicking. Can you finish the ad so I can play your game, please? My break is running out. And then I saw Jigsaw as like one of the games they have. I'm like, I am not about to download a Jigsaw puzzle because that's how I want to spend my 15-minute break. But I did see that today. Anyway, it feels like this the survivor is able to piece different pieces together to get a more complete picture of something. And that increase in understanding is what allows the survivor to be more deliberate and conscious with its choices, decisions, energy, thoughts, whatever, to bring about something. Like it feels like it's not perfect and it's not 100% accurate, but there is some balance that the survivor holds that is a reflection of the total balance or a greater balance. And that brings it something, even in the presence of debilitation, even when it seems like there aren't, even when it seems like there are so many choices that like there are only so many choices that you can make, because the strategist sees beyond that. The strategist sees beyond the shifting and the changes and the moves to like the further game. But it's a further game of like how everything unfolds. This is the King of Swords, where the Queen of Cups was like the feminine, intuitional part of the High Priestess. It can see what like everyone else does, but the King of Swords can see what it does and how the world is impacted as a result. Because it's like sometimes if we have an intuition or a knowing, or if we receive a dream about something, it's like we see how everything is going to play out, but we don't necessarily see how it happens like when we're involved. It's almost like we're taken out of the equation and then things just happen. But with the King of Swords, like the King of Swords is in the equation and things are like also happening. Because it's like sometimes with input, things can work out differently. It's like that's a Raven. Hey Reese, how you doing? And maybe that's why this healer card is interesting to me. Because usually it's like one out on the land, one out in the water, and they're in like different directions. With this Two of Pentacles and the healer, it feels like it really like emphasizes that part. And I'll read it again. It's like how the strategist accounts for its own behavior as well as any opponent. And it's not, it's just like more people. Actually, where's that first part? I might read the whole thing. The strategist is a careful tactician. Through the clouds of smoke and the refractions of light, he sees the pieces shifting many moves ahead, the whole game of chess flexing and shaping itself into the likely and the unlikely. His brain is clear, and he uses his razor sharp logic to calculate the possible outcomes of any given path. He is comfortable amongst the abstraction and never blindsided by complacency. No narrow minded academic trying to make events fit a predefined formula. He sees possibilities and options that you and I might overlook. The strategist's vision is wide, and he incorporates into his calculations his own behavior patterns as well as that of any opponent. A master of the checkerboard of night and day, where destiny with men for pieces plays, hither and thither he moves and mates and slays, and one by one back into the closet lays. I think the jester's entry talked about that like wide sidedness. Let me see if I can find it. Where was it? The jester may act like a fool, but he is far from being one. A philosopher clown with an ironic sense of humor, he refuses to be misdirected by the whims of kings. Unlike the puckish trickster, who is dedicated to causing insightful mischief, the jester takes a wider view of existence. His wit is, at root, profound, and his eyes are open to both the grandeur and the futility of existence. He refuses to be misdirected by the whims of kings, and he takes a wider view of existence, is the parts that are sort of like making me think of that strategist. Because I think sometimes it's like when a lot of things start to shift and move, it just feels like there's a depth to some things that go a little deeper than we might think. Like there's depth upon depth upon depth, or depth beneath depth. Because it's like sometimes we'll read between the lines and we'll see something and we'll go, oh, see, like this is it. But sometimes you have to read between those lines and then read between the lines again to get to the truth of like what's happening. I'm going to look before and after the Wheel of Fortune because it feels like something or someone is holding these still, but the survivor strategist is going to be able to move anyway. Or the chariot, duh. Is there another white knight in here? I think the horse of death is the twin to the Knight of Cups, at least in the Vitruvian edition. The horse of death is the twin to the Knight of Cups, but the Knight of Cups is the only unicorn in the deck. I was actually going to read one of these. Which book of maps is this? This is the Vitruvian book of maps. Oh, let's go to the where my Revelation book of maps. I don't know if I have it on here. I know it was on my iPhone. Oh, the Revelation book of maps is right here. Well, let's read that I Ching. Let's see if it's any different. It was number 41. 41 is a 5, which is all about change. Debilitation waning on the decline. A state of debilitation, that which is below must yield and decrease to compensate for that which is above. A sacrifice made sincerely from the heart must be offered as compensation. Although movement is in the decline, it is still advantageous for you to proceed forward on your endeavor. There are still benefits to be had in continuing. The question to ask is how one might achieve advancement in spite of the ongoing state of debilitation. You remain protected by the divine. Do not linger or dwell on a matter that has come to a conclusion. Do not fault yourself for the outcome. It's the same. But the second time I read it, that's the energy of the star. The strategist, it's like because debilitation is limited on land, the strategist goes up to the star and then moves something from here. And because it's moved from here, it has no choice but to move correspondingly back on the physical. So this is why, like, that's the impact of how the survivor plays with the power of belief or whatever. That like uses all of these keys or uses all of that knowledge to make something move while everything is still. That's the game that the strategist is watching. It's like the strategist is watching all the way up here while everything is playing out down here. And sometimes we'll like try to come here or we'll try to come here to get that moment of advantage or to get that the higher ground or whatever. But it's like something about this, it goes even higher than that. Which is why it might seem like things in the energetic and ether may not at the moment have been operating the same as it used to or whatever. Or maybe it's like been that way for a minute. It's because there's something larger, there's something bigger at play. And again, the thing about the end of the video last time, it was like it's to know like what things that are playing out, or like it's basically to know what needs to happen. And then it's to find out what can happen a different way. And then you can play with that. It's like, I know that this needs to happen in this way, but maybe instead of like eating apples and bananas, we can go for strawberries and kiwis because they're just asking for fruits. And just because strawberries and bananas, apples and bananas are the fruits that people immediately go to, doesn't necessarily mean that we're obligated to eat those fruits. So we could do strawberry and kiwi. Like, yeah, you can do strawberry and kiwi. Because maybe you're allergic to bananas. I don't know. Or you already have enough potassium, so you don't need any more bananas. I don't know. I might have got lost in that metaphor, or that metaphor might not have made sense. Uh, but that's what's happening here. It's like the strategist is playing at a higher level. So now I will go looking for the 8 of Pentacles, the journeyman. That's the one in pursuit of becoming a master. The thing about the grotesque in this deck is it's basically, it's the thing that makes us special. It's the thing that makes us unique. It's what makes us us. But so often it can separate us from the rest of the world in the terms of like it's something that other people don't necessarily accept, or it's something that's not necessarily talked about. So we feel outside and outcast, or we may be made to feel that way. And we can choose to like distance ourselves from it, but in doing so, we become less of who we are. And not only do we become less of who we are, it's like we become less able to utilize our truth to affect our experience. And then other truths start to come into play. Anyway. What card did I say I was going to try to read in this? Oh, maybe the star. don't know. Let's see where the healer at. Key 17, the healer. The eight-pointed star of the Magi features the alchemical squared circle, and at its center the tria prima, gemstones in the color correspondences for sulfur, mercury, and salt. She goes like she considered many things. She did a whole lot when she made this. So I'm just gonna read it and we're gonna go along, and I'm not gonna understand most of it probably. 7 more stars fill the sky, each featuring mother of pearl stones. Mother of pearl brings divine feminine blessings of prosperity, fertility, heightened psychic sensitivity, and the powers of both creation and rejuvenation. The healer brings the gift of the spirit, which is none other than hope. The star of the Magi is also emblematic of the Masonic keystone, which is the center stone that holds an archway together. The keystone represents enlightenment and stability at the peak point. Polished, rounded water stones by the pool of whirling waters connects the healer to the angel in key 14. Here, the spirit of the healer is a messenger from the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is the East Asian manifestation of the Buddhist Bodhisattva. Usually I try, but I can't today. She's a manifestation of a Buddhist bodhisattva and is the divine personification of mercy and compassion. A bodhisattva is one who was once human, cultivating a path to enlightenment, but who was willfully chosen not to ascend to Buddhahood, but who has willfully chosen not to ascend to Buddhahood. Instead, the bodhisattva stays behind on the earthly plane as a divinity who helps alleviate human suffering. Kuan Yin's vow is that she would be the last to ascend to Buddhahood, only after every last human soul has attained enlightenment would she ascend. I'm going to put that down because Marvin's getting tired. Who was this? The Buddhist Bodhisattva was born male but chose to transition into a female divine form as Kuan Yin. She associates herself closest to those who have been most marginalized and neglected. Kuan Yin is the personification of unconditional agape love and charity. She dispenses her aid based on the sincerity of your need, not based on merit or religious faith. The story I grew up with about Kuan Yin is that in ancient times, women were not allowed to be in a room alone with a male other than her father or her husband. This excluded women from spiritual practices with male deities. The Buddhist Bodhisattva transformed himself into a woman, becoming Kuan Yin, so that she could impart spiritual teachings to women. According to sutras, Kuan Yin can shapeshift to take on any form as needed to spread mercy and compassion across the world. Per esoteric Buddhist thought, emanations of Kuan Yin can be born into the consciousness of humans, likened to the concept of divine possession at times in your life, especially if you've cultivated a strong bind with Kuan Yin. You might subconsciously and automatically invoke Kuan Yin and become her for a moment in time to carry forth acts of benevolence, mercy, and compassion. There's a story of a princess born with an emanation of Kuan Yin, and from girlhood practiced Buddhist tenets faithfully. When her father, the king, ordered her to marry, she refused, saying she wanted to become a nun. Her will was so strong he had no choice but to relent, but ordered the monastery to force the princess into hard labor, hoping that would motivate the princess to change her mind and return to the palace. But the princess faithfully carried out the duties given to her without complaint. One day the king came down with a terrible illness. The palace physician said the only cure for his illness was a medicine made from the eyes, ears, and limbs of one who willingly sacrificed those parts to him. And then she has a note, hey, I never said this story would make rational sense. This is just the tale I grew up hearing. No one that claimed to love him, not his family, his children, concubines, or anyone from his kingdom, would willingly make the sacrifice. But soon the princess heard about her father's condition. She agreed to make the sacrifice. The king did not know who had made the sacrifice, but after he was healed, he wanted to meet this person. He was taken to his daughter, the princess, now without eyes, ears, or limbs. The Tarot Star card, as interpreted specifically for this deck, expresses the human ideals of mercy, compassion, and charity as paths towards healing, both the healing of our own selves and the healing of others. Classical depictions of Kuan Yin or Kenon show her in long, loose white robes. Upon her crown sits one emanation of the Amitabha Buddha, who was Kuan Yin's spiritual teacher and who showed her the path to enlightenment. Her primary symbols are the lotus blossom and a vase of healing dew, which she pours out to heal the world. Merging that with the Tarot Star card, Kuan Yin is holding two vases, one pouring into the waters of spiritual consciousness, and the other onto the earth for healing the physical body. So that is earth. It's just like kind of blue, like the water ish. You know what I mean? In the background is the Shinto shrine housing a kami nature spirit. The kami spirit presence is represented by the rounded mirror that is the centerpiece of the shrine. Green shrubbery along the base of the Blue Mountains represent growth, cultivation, and fertile soil. There you go. That's a lot. When the healer appears to you, divinity acknowledges that you have been through a battle, and Kuan Yin now comes to heal your wounds. One vessel pours forth astral light onto land, symbolic of alleviating physical suffering, and the other onto earthly waters, symbolic of alleviating emotional sorrow. You have suffered, and the spirit of the healer has heard your cries. Restorative powers are coming your way. Key 17 in divination is a sign that the most exalted, beneficent forms of God and light are present before you, are close by. The seven smaller stars represent the sacred seven, or seven planetary spirits. When the healer appears to you in readings about a creative endeavor, Spirit is letting you know that what you're doing will have profound positive and healing influences over others, and your work will go toward a greater good. In general, when the healer comes, the path to take and the choice to make is that which will facilitate collective benefit. The healing dew that pours forth onto the earth brings rejuvenation and growth to physical, bodily, and financial health. The dew that pours forth into the pool of spiraling waters brings rejuvenation and growth to spiritual and astral health. And both the Boda, what's Boda? BOTA Tarot and the RWS, Rider Waite Smith. What's BOTA? I don't know. Key 14 and 17 share the common motif of an angel with one foot touching the water and one foot touching the land. This suggests the harmony between the material earthly plane and the fluid spiritual plane. This is divinity touching down to bless both. Here in the SKT star card, the presence of divine blessings in both planes is depicted in the Shinto shrine to the nature kami on land, and Kuan Yin floating on a lotus blossom in the waters. Likewise, symbolically, the kami shrine becomes a stand-in for the ibis and tree. The ibis and the tree. Oh, there's a bird in the tree. You can see the bird in the tree. The star card in a reading can indicate prevailing Aquarian energies. Aquarian archetypes are the theologian, the astronomer, or the eccentric. This is also service toward a greater good, a sign of someone who is a champion of social justice, or someone who is fundamentally unique and original. The water bearer is one who has come to understand and know the mysteries, and uses that knowledge in a healing manner to restore faith, prosperity, and beneficence in the world. You uplift others. Where key 14, the angel, shows that you possess a harmonious balance between that which is physical and that which is spiritual. Here in key 17, the healer, that established balance becomes a personal power with which you externalize and put into use, healing the world around you. Well, there you go. Okay. Ooh. Oh, snap. Oh, wow. Okay, I haven't like really dug into the Book of Maps for the Revelations edition or the Revelations edition too much. I feel like I don't know. Back when I only had like 3 decks, it was or like 5 decks, it was easier to really like use them more. So that's why like in the Wild Unknown, I'll have like the card of Birthright or the card of the Wellspring, and in the Witch's Tarot, I have what different cards. Um, it's fine anyway. So those who are like the grotesque and the survivor is it's those who are outside, those who are outcast, those who are sort of left to fend for themselves. So in the healer star card is Kuan Yin coming to give aid or relief to those. It also talked about how the balance is found in the angel, but it's used in the star. And again, that's why the strategist, or that's how the strategist was like, okay, well, how do I use everything that I can to move things in the realm where it's not debilitated? To move things in realms and spaces and energies where the energy is still flowing, or where there's still momentum, or just take it up to the source, right? Because it will, and it said in the I Ching, like that which is below is yielding to that which is above, which is again why the strategist has to go above to get something to move. So, um, I guess it's about it's time to exercise. If you've been on a journey and collecting knowledge, information, or whatever experiences, healing, it's a time where those things can be used to make things move, even when things are still or seem like they're stagnating, even when like it seems difficult. So it feels like it's kind of sort of like pushing us up a little bit. I'm gonna read the grotesque because I need to see. I almost wonder if this is another emanation of Kuan Yin? Question mark. But the water is going up instead of being poured down, and it talked about how like people could take on the energy of Kuan Yin. It's very Russillian mantle, energy mantle. I like saying Russillian. Russ talks about. I think it's been a minute since he's mentioned the energy mantles, um, but it's along those lines. The I Ching mentioned sacrifice, and she sacrificed her eyes, ears, and limbs to the very one who intentionally made her life exceedingly difficult, but she never complained. She just did the work because there was something that she wanted, and that's what she had to do to get what she wanted. She wanted that life of service. She wanted to be the nun, right? I don't know if she. Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so if that meant that she got the worst chores and she had to do the stuff that nobody else wanted to do, then that's what it meant. But she was still in the place that she wanted to be in. Okay. Sorry. Um, she was still where she wanted to be. So with all of this Aquarius energy, this feels like, so there's this prophesied time, the age of Aquarius, and how it's been mentioned, referenced, talked about for however long it's been talked about. It feels like it's a time at some point, maybe at the end of the age of Aquarius, when we move into the age of Capricorn and everyone's already doing whatever this is. Like it's tapping into the aspect of the creator that is housed within our souls and using it in a way that I kind of want to say like it's meant to, but it feels like it isn't necessarily meant to be used in a specific way. But there's like an energy that we hold when we use it, or there's a like it's meant to benefit people. Because it feels like in the grotesque, it's man separate from that divine within. And the Two of Cups, this is the introduction, or this is where they meet. But with the Chancellor, well, with the Chancellor, it's like that union meeting, it's like being officiated and watched over, but it's also like it serves a purpose, it serves a point, or it's to be used in a certain way. It's not to be used in ego when, because I think sometimes as people, we can be blinded by our desires and we can be extremely short sighted and we can do things in the moment that seem like they'll pay off, but in the long run, it actually works against us. Or in the long run, it's like it's not sustainable, it doesn't last. Like, yeah, you can manifest a winning lotto ticket today, but if you're going to be broken in a worse position 5 years from now, then like, what's the point? Temporary relief or temporary whatever to feel worse later. It's like it's something bigger than that, it's something beyond that. Or maybe that's it. I don't know. Don't let me tell you. Who am I? That's what this feels like, though. I didn't know that the Buddhist Bodhisattva was born a male but became a female because women didn't have access to the same spiritual teachings. I was like, what? Okay, work. I think that's it. So I guess this is what the Star Climber was about, in a way. But with that shadow diver aspect, it feels like this is a different aspect of Star Climber. And so I almost wonder if I'm going to pull before and after the Eight of Pentacles, the Journeyman, because um, that energy is here. It feels like with the tension, it feels like both of these are like higher self energies or higher functional energies. But this one is like bound and this one is unbound. Meaning like this one is giving, this one is not. And I think that's something important, that this is more than just a survivor. If it were only a survivor, it feels like it might begin to be able to access those higher functionalities, question mark, girl, I don't know. But there's nothing that it can do. Like nothing that it does changes anything. The balance is the same. But the star, the healer, can freely pour. It can affect things. And sometimes it's like it's easy for a survivor to become jaded, and understandably so. It's easy for the rejected, the outcast, the black sheep, the one who's like always excluded or left behind, to feel some type of way about the world, reality, other people. And in a space like this, it's like there's no room for those like darkened, poison, murky waters. And that's why the chancellor is here. It's like even it feels like it's not something that's just like freely given. So even if you do all the steps, you might not steal whatever, because it's about, again, with this, it's like there's a purpose beyond a purpose beyond a purpose. It goes fairly high. So um, like I said, I'm just some dude. Who am I looking for? Oh, it's right here. Okay. Well, there we got the warrior right there. That's the sun, which is interesting because I'll look at this. I left it right there at the warrior, which means I skipped through the moon because it's literally right there. The corruptor and the quester. Ooh, with the bread of life. The bread of life, Ace of Pentacles. Okay. Is that a theme? Um, so around the journeyman is the corruptor and the quester. And if you look at this, the quester is facing, sailing in a direction away from the corruption. Just hold up. I'm like, are my eyes? Is this a limniscate Ouroboros on the quester's cloak? Because that's the two of pentacles, and in the Vitruvian, it's the nocturne. And you can, I mean, it's still here. It's like these two, the big ones in the back, right? Universal Mercury is the bigger picture. It's the strategist viewpoint. It sees every twist and turn. It's like the bird's eye view, but even deeper. Oh, that energy came out. Who was that? Was that for a sign? Was that for Taurus? When I used the Yggdrasil Norse divination cards, and it was Odin and Durin, and both of them had the sight that was so, like, they knew every nook and cranny of their realm. Well, Durin of his realm, the realm of the dwarves, Odin of many realms, and because they had that level of sight, they were able to navigate it. And that energy, it's here again. But the thing about the corruptor, again, it's just like that. It's that short sightedness. That, oh, it's backwards now. It's not supposed to, it came out this way. It sees beyond all of this. But to see beyond all of this, it has to be able to look in the mirror. Again, the strategist can account for its own behaviors as well as others. And I think a lot of times we kind of sort of focus on what everybody else is doing and what's happening in the world. That we kind of sort of, it can be easy to lose sight of what we're doing. And again, it's like that's the difference between like the King of Swords side of the High Priestess and the Queen of Cups side of the High Priestess. I mean, this is only day 2. Maybe technically, it's the 3rd day since I started. Oh my gosh! It's like, where do we go from here? What I like about the strategist here is that it seems like I feel like I've seen a few things. There's a story or a trope, and it's a story or trope, so it can be different for like real life actual people. But it's like to be given, granted the power to change anything and everything. Like the strategist is almost usually the person who wouldn't change anything. And that's why it feels like he's so intently observing the board. Because it's like you can realize the delicate balance that everything has. But it's only when things go to such an extreme where it's like, okay, maybe it is time to like move a piece on the board. And that was cert. Another time I used the Idrisil North divination cards, Muspel or Cert came out. Whichever card has Sleipnir, because it was like, oh, it took Odin's Steed. Now the other side isn't able to do anything, and it feels like in that moment where nothing else can be done humanly possible or within our ability, that's when the divine can step in. But it's almost like it's not until moments like that that the divine steps in and more with more force, because we have free will, we have choice, and because we have will and choice, we also have the consequences and repercussions to those choices and decisions and actions. I mean, consequence is what makes choice worth it. Like, if no matter what you did, the same thing always happened, what would be the point? You know what I mean? It's because there is some give and take, or it's because there is some equal and opposite reaction or force, or it's because something happens for a specific thing that any choice actually matters. If you're the type that believes we have choice. Oof. All right, well, I am gonna shuffle these off. Well, yeah. Well, I'll go to Bixby. That's my go-to. If Bixby says tails, we'll get a final shuffle. If not, I'll just end this because I don't know where it would go from here. Hi, Bixby. Flip a coin. Flip a coin.
All right, here comes the flip. Looks like it came up heads.
Heads. So that's the end of it. I hope you have a good whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, or way, you find. Um, I hope that there's a compassion that I hope for you. For the world, for yourself. But it's like, it's this feeling of like hoping, compassion, and like hoping that you find who you are outside of the world. Um, or it's hard to communicate, but I hope it for you. It's this very delicate weaving of whatever these energies were, um, that I hope for you. Because again, with the corruptor, like that's what can so easily happen when we are sort of outcast or we feel that way. It's like we become all sort of twisted up on the inside, or we grow cold in some ways, and it's like that's fine and understandable in like the the down here. Those are luxuries, I guess, that we can have down here. But when you get up here, or up here. It's like there's less space for that because of this the disparity it can create. I guess I don't know, girl. Don't ask me. What would I know? Bottom of the deck is Saturn and Libra, Three of Swords. Libra being the Chancellor, Saturn being the Restrictor. It's like that is when that channel would be closed. Or even if the channel is open, it's like nothing would flow through or it would trickle through because that energy still exists. Top of the deck is another white horse. Are all the knights white? I don't know. It's the Shining Gale, Knight of Swords. Which is all mental. Winds of the Sylph. I think Waves of the Undine is the Shining Water, that Knight of Cups. Where'd my little book go? Here it is. It is auspicious to continue moving, but how do you move in a state of debilitation is the question. And what will you sacrifice to make that movement? Sometimes the things that we have to sacrifice to move forward is hurt, is pain, is trauma. Sometimes forgiveness is just like letting things go so that we can move on with our lives more in the moment, less in a moment that we don't like, or less in a moment that we regret, or less in a moment that we had no control over. So we can spend more time in the presence of that which we do. Because we can be with something that we like, we can be in a favorable environment and an environment that is like, it matches sort of like where we want to be or where we are. But like mentally, emotionally, we can still be where we are or where we were at that time that whatever happened. So we don't even realize or recognize that in a way we're already exactly where we want to be. There are things that we just don't see, and that's the thing about the corruptor. Okay. Oh, well, it flipped over, so we'll look at it. Ooh, two of them. Hey, this one came out before. Grace. Yep, Grace and where your name at? I feel like there's so many letters and words. The Lion. Grace and the Lion. This is strength. But it's like a two component strength. And so instead of like putting both components on the same card, it's like they both require individual consideration before we can think of them together or as one thing. We need to have a certain individual understanding of them. And then at the bottom is illumination again. So look, strength and the sun, Leo energy. We're coming to the end of Leo season. It's going to be Virgo season here pretty soon. So isn't there like a new moon in Virgo on the 27th? That's happening fairly early in the Virgo season. Maybe it's early enough that my little Pisces sun will be like completely fine. I wonder if the full moon in Pisces is going to happen on my Mercury. Anyway, I already told you what I hope for you, but I do want to double down on it. Ooh, girl. I'll catch y'all next time I catch you. Thanks, Holly and Reese, for being here. Interesting times ahead, I guess. I don't know. I sort of thought, honestly, you know how like when you think that things will sort of like lighten up, maybe? Like you think the worst of something is over, or not necessarily the worst of it, but just like the thing is over. And then it's like, but wait, there's more. And you're like, there's more. What do you mean more? Again, it's like it feels like if it were here, then maybe it would be like over. But it feels like it's beyond. It's like higher than we think and deeper than we'd imagine. But because of that, there are opportunities that it brings. So, ooh, I was gonna talk to Reem. I was gonna ask Reem about that, but Reem's been busy, so I never sent her the voicemail or the voice note or whatever. Anyway, okay, all right, I'll catch you later. Bye.